Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
And welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier. Today, we have someone that we are huge fans of. He's an actor, director, author, and singer. He starred on stage and screen. He's been nominated for a Golden Globe and a Tony. He's won an Independent Spirit Award as Best Actor. He starred on Broadway in The King and I, was one of the stars on the Netflix series Longmire, as well as starring in such classic films as La Bamba, Stand and Deliver, Young Guns, and many, many others. He's the author of the Tinderbox series. Please help us welcome Lou Diamond Phillips. Lou, thanks so much for joining us today.
Welcome, young man.
Thank you, you young man. Oh, you need to put your glasses back on, brother.
Oh, hey, Lou. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
hey,
welcome,
you're a lot older
welcome,
than I thought
young
you were.
You're a young man to me.
Well, we have a lot to cover, but I want to start by going back with you. As a kid, you moved around a lot. I saw from military base to military base. So what was life like for you during that time? Did you have any desire to get into acting then? And, where did that love come from?
I mean, it's interesting. I've thought about this in the past, and I think there are two things that happen to military kids, and if you look, at a lot of people who are in Hollywood, they have a similar background, and I think moving around so much, having to go into a different community every couple of years makes you the new kid constantly. Right. So you're going to do one of two things. You're going to develop a really gregarious personality and try to make friends quickly and try to fit in, or you're going to revert and become very sort of introverted and not put out the effort, knowing that that your relationships are going to be short. So I was in the first group, and being in the drama club was certainly a part of that. The first play I ever did, I was in the 6th grade. I was in the Philippines at the time, and we ripped off. I think the statute of limitations is over now, but we ripped off a Charlie Brown kind of a theme for our Christmas play that, Miss Greenberg and Miss McGinn made a bunch of us sort of precocious students write. So that really started me on my path to not only wanting to write and perform, but, to control things by being a director. So it was one of the things that allowed me to express myself early on. And so when we ended up in Corpus Christi, Texas, started doing plays in junior high and throughout high school, and it focused my love for the craft.
Oh, nice.
All right, so let's back up. You were named after a highly decorated Marine, right? And your father passed when you were young. And what was it? What do you know about this Lou Diamond? How did your naming come about?
He was a Marines Marine. Sergeant Llewellyn Diamond was his name, or Leland Lou Diamond. I mean, I've seen both versions of it actually. He was a gunnery sergeant during World War II in the Philippines. I mean, there are multiple mythical stories about the man. I mean, one of them was that he put a mortar into the smokestack of a Japanese steamer in Manila Bay. I mean, that kind of guy, a real Audie Murphy of the Pacific Theater, if you will. And my father, Gerald Upchurch, read a book about him. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother on that side, her name was Luella, and so Lou Diamond, just seemed to really resonate with him. So he named me after that military hero.
Yeah. So you said you grew up predominantly in Texas, but so you did shows in Texas. What time did you finally say, I'm going to go out to California? Give this.
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't.
I did not go out to California. I was a chicken.
Really?
Honestly, man. I mean, I was working in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was doing a lot of theater at Stage West and Theater 3, and the University of Texas at Arlington, where I have my theater degree. I was also studying and then eventually teaching at the Film Actors Lab under the tutelage of a wonderful, wonderful man named Adam Rourke, who was really my film mentor. He had been a contract player in the 50s. He had done a ton of biker films with Dick Clark in the late 60s and early 70s. Worked with Nicholson 5 times, was, best buds with him. Turned down Easy Rider.
Wow.
Yeah, he kicked himself for a long time for that. So I was near the top of the food chain when it came to working actors in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And at the time, a lot of TV movies were coming through there. The Dallas series, where I did a little guest spot. It was the #1 producer of industrial and commercials in the country. So there was a lot of work for actors. And but people kept saying, "Hey, man, you need to go out to California. You need to go out to California." And at the time, I was a big fish in a small pond and liking it. I was actually cast for La Bamba out of Dallas, Texas. Junie Lowry, the casting director, and Phyllis Sparsi, the associate producer, came to Dallas for one day. They were doing a whole national talent search, and they found me there. They put me on videotape, and a couple of weeks later flew me out for a screen test. So I did not venture forth. I was dragged kicking and screaming to Hollywood.
Well, I read that. Did your agent tell you that you were going to an audition for the Frankie Valli story? Is that?
Yeah, it was actually my agent's assistant, lovely, lovely girl. But I think the thing that confused them was that the audition was held in a legit theater in downtown Dallas, where they perform plays and musicals. But it's obviously what Junie had rented for the day. So she thought it was a musical, and she got the name wrong. She thought it was Frankie Valli. Obviously, now we have Jersey Boys, which is fantastic. But at the time, that didn't exist. So I thought, okay, sure, yeah. I'm a singer, yes, but only mostly after La Bamba. Before that, I didn't do a whole lot of musical theater or anything. But I thought, okay, at this point in your career, you audition for everything. And I went down there fully expecting that it was going to be a musical, theater production, only to get there and then get the sides and realize, oh my gosh, not only is this not musical, it is a movie musical, and it's a Hollywood film. I mean, what the hell were they doing there? Really,
you didn't show up with like, oh, what a night or anything prepared.
I wore really tight pants just in case.
Yeah.
How much did you know about Ritchie Valens prior to filming?
Very little. Very little. I mean, I knew that, he had gone down in the Playing with Buddy. I knew the song La Bamba. My dad was a massive 50s rock and roll fan. So, we had all the compilation records and that sort of thing. So I was, tangentially aware of who he was. In reading the script, realizing he was only 17, realizing that his career was 8 months long, that he was a Mexican-American farm worker. I mean, all of that was a revelation. And one of the things that I think made the film such a success and so accessible to so many people, because the story was really heartfelt. It was the American dream encapsulated. And in a weird way, it gave me a lot more license. Once I had the endorsement of the family and the support of the family, who were there every single day, I had the ability to be Ritchie.
The California Kid, Ritchie Valens!
And you look at a lot of other, famous rock and rollers from that time. Buddy Holly, for instance, they were so well documented that people have expectations of them. Here's the look. Here's what Elvis looked like. Here's what Elvis sounded like. Here's, so many others. The Little Richard. It would be hard to live up to that image. And with Ritchie, I was able to introduce him to a much bigger audience.
So when that film came out, I gotta say, there are certain films. I'd put Gary Busey in this too, with his portrayal of Buddy, and you with La Bamba, and maybe why can't I think of the actor's name who played Freddie Mercury not long ago?
Rami Malek.
Yeah, like there are some people who are just knocked it out of the park, and you're one of them.
Jamie Foxx.
I think just were really,
Jamie Foxx. There were times during Ray where you just didn't know if you were looking at Jamie or looking at archival footage.
Agreed.
Crazy.
I mean, made to do that role, just outstanding. I think Taylor Hackford and him really nailed that. But
And
man,
Taylor Hackford
I just
produced
gotta
La
say,
Bamba, by the way.
what's that?
Taylor Hackford produced La Bamba, so
Oh,
he,
he did.
oh yeah, so he knows a thing or two about
Yeah.
Music
the
files.
genre.
Or three. Yeah, he's super talented. But anyway, man, kudos. I've always marveled at that performance of yours. So I read that was Richie Valens' sister around during the production, and if so, what was that like? Is there a little pressure little extra pressure on you there?
It started out as pressure because I had a lot to live up to, but it became an absolute blessing throughout. And we're still close. I saw his little sister Irma and his little brother Mario last month. We just got together to launch a coffee table photo book of behind the scenes photos that Merrick Morton shot and that have not been seen in 38 years.
Oh, wow, fantastic.
So yeah, it obviously I knew I had to please them, but at the same time I was able to go to them and go, is this right? Would he have done this? How did he react to this? And they, because Connie was 12 at the time, so she had great memory, of Richie. Bob, was a contemporary, was older than Richie. And Bob was there, the entire time as well. His mother, Connie. I mean, it was an absolute treasure trove of information for the things that weren't in the script, the things that were between the lines.
Yeah.
Because there only so much was written about him. There were only two film clips, one in a movie called Go Johnny Go with Chuck Berry, and his appearance on American Bandstand. So there wasn't a whole lot to go from like trying to replicate a physical presence.
Yeah, and that part's good as far as giving you freedom, in terms of the public, because we didn't really have too much to compare to, but with family members there, I'm glad they were there. I mean, I don't know, I love when things are authentic, and this is a totally side note. Have you guys, have they ever made a Big Bopper film? I don't think they have.
No, there are a number of people, I mostly Texans who go, oh my gosh, what about, I mean, the Big Bopper had less of a career than Richie did. I mean, he was the one-hit wonder, man. He was, JP Richardson was a DJ in Texas. So there isn't a whole lot musically to hang your hat on. The ones that they're doing these days, I mean, there's a whole library of material. I mean, you got What Delivered Me from Nowhere coming out, the Springsteen one. I got to say, I think Taron Egerton and Rocket Man did not get the recognition he deserved because it came out a year after Bohemian Rhapsody. I thought Taron Egerton did his own singing, and as far as disappearing into Elton John,
I agree.
I thought
it was, I
fortunate.
think, unfortunate timing coming right on the coattails of Bohemian Rhapsody. I agree. Hey, man, you don't have to answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Read that you did they pay you just SAG scale for Bamba? Plus
Not
10
only
or no?
What's that?
Plus 10 for your agent?
Yeah, the agent got 10%, sure.
Okay. Now I know the agent got 10%, but there was a year when they started negotiating scale plus 10. So
Exactly.
the 10%
So
didn't
it was
come
scale
out of
plus
the
10.
actors.
So I mean, for the uninitiated, that means I got paid about $1,000 a week.
Oh, wow.
And so I made about $6,000 on La Bamba,
I feel
half of which I gave to my mother, and I was almost out of money come December of that year. I was going to have to move back to Texas, and I was living with with 3 roommates. There were 4 of us in one house. And while I was shooting La Bamba, I had the choice of them getting me a room or taking the per diem. So I took because they hired me as a local. I mean, this was a low budget film. Everybody thinks that, oh my gosh, everything's, a Tom Cruise movie or a Marvel movie. No, it's not. This was a tiny little $6 million negative pickup. We were paid scale to get the role. I was hired as a local. And so I slept not only on a friend's couch, I slept on a friend's couch cushions in their utility room. So yeah, I paid my dues, man.
Hey, but you never know. Maybe that's what, because Richie toured, you know, and he was all over. He was never, you know, maybe that was the feel you were supposed to have,
I'm
like
telling you
up and
something, man.
Adam.
It put me right in that mindset. I
Yeah.
was not, I was the lead of a major motion picture, but I certainly didn't feel glamorous about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's method by osmosis. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, so
And I did that. It reminds me of a movie I did called The 33, where the conditions of filming, we played the Chilean miners who got trapped in 2010. Me and Antonio Banderas and a
Mhm.
fantastic cast. But we literally stayed in a truck stop motel, with gaps underneath the door. So I mean, it was not glamorous. So I mean, once again,
Yeah.
kind of enforced method.
And I
so
feel like the film made it $6,000 back that they paid you. I have a
Yeah.
feeling they,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was worth the investment.
yeah, so that's what I was curious. So you're making this low budget thing, and you get paid scale. So did you have any sense, hey, this is going to be a really good movie? I mean, this is going to be a hit. Did you have any feel for that at all, or no?
Okay, and I love how you phrase that, Jonathan, because they're kind of mutually exclusive. We definitely had the sense that it was going to be a good movie.
Mhm.
We felt like we were making something special.
Okay.
There was heart there. The performances were wonderful. It was just, Sylvia Vega Vasquez, her costumes, the cinematography, Adam Greenberg, the production design. It was all really, really wonderful. But I'm an unknown kid from Texas. The three biggest stars at the time. Elizabeth Pena had Down and Out in Beverly Hills. Isai had done Bad Boys with Sean Penn. Joey Pantoliano, character actor from like Risky Business. So, but there weren't any stars, right? So this was not and it's about an obscure Mexican American rocker, you know,
Right.
that is an asterisk in Buddy Holly's story. So this was not a guaranteed success, which is why I didn't work for a year. That's why I almost ran out of money.
Mhm.
6 months later, I was lucky enough to land a gig on Miami Vice,
Did I ask you about that? Yeah.
and that led to me doing Stand and Deliver. So for a year until the movie came out, Hollywood was in wait and see mode. They weren't about to hand me the lead in another film. So we had no idea, and it wasn't until the first time I saw it in a screening room at Columbia where I went, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
really, really good. This might change my life.
There's nothing like the soul of a movie. There's nothing like the heart in it. You can't replace all the work, the good work that you and everyone involved in the film did with explosions and CGI and all the big budget stuff. Sorry, there's just nothing like it, man. And you guys,
And I mean, we're at a crossroads now. AI is not going to create that either.
No.
AI is not going to create chemistry. It
no,
can give you a list of if AI created a list of actors that should have starred in La Bamba, none of us would have been on it. Okay.
yeah,
And yet they're doing casting through AI now. They're writing scripts with, but
Yeah.
they don't have the kind of cultural insight and finger on the pulse that Luis Valdez had
yeah.
in the mid 80s, coming from the theater with El Teatro Campesino. You cannot replace the DNA of something that is alchemy, and
Amen.
that's when you have a successful film, and especially one, we're entering the fourth decade that film has been around. That's why something is classic. That's why something stands the test of time. It is not put together to be of the moment or trendy.
I got to say, just talking about you then, because I remember at the time, I was absolutely blown away. I knew La Bamba. I didn't know much about Richie Valens. I didn't know you. After seeing that movie, it's like, that was amazing. And I said, I got to see what this guy's going to do next. I was like, I thought this was such an incredible performance. But yeah, you mentioned Miami Vice. I just want to skip to that for 1 second because, prior to coming out, you had that Miami Vice episode, which was like then one of the hottest shows on television. Besides Don Johnson, Philip Michael Thomas, and Edward James Olmos, you did Stand and Deliver with. Viggo Mortensen and Annette Bening were in your episode too, and
Yeah,
they weren't big
crazy.
yet. Yeah,
We were all on our way up at that point,
was that your big welcome to Hollywood moment, being in that like big show?
Well, I mean, obviously, we didn't know that Vigo and Annette were going to go on to
Right.
massive heights. We were working actors. But yes, being on that show, which was even at that moment, later on in its run, a cultural touchstone,
Sure.
was a big deal, man. That was a big deal. I mean, at the time, it's almost as if being on Miami Vice was a bigger deal than having made this movie La Bamba, which would not come out for a number of months, But as I said, I had one scene with Eddie Olmos. Eddie was aware that I was the lead in La Bamba
Okay.
because he's friends with the Valdez brothers,
Mhm.
Luis Valdez and Danny Valdez, who produced and wrote and directed La Bamba because he had done Zoot Suit with them. So he was well aware that I had something in the can that might make some noise. And we did one scene together, and he literally said, "Hey, what are you doing next month?" And I said, "You want to have lunch, And he literally gave me a phone number that ended up being the phone number for Ramon Menendez, the director of Stand and Deliver. He said, "I'm making a movie. It's very important. It's going to be a wonderful film, and you really need to be in this."
Very good.
Yeah. And so, sure enough, that's how I ended up in Stand and Deliver.
Wow.
He's a cool guy, isn't he?
Is you will never meet anybody with more heart than Eddie. He really walks the walk. You know what I'm saying? I mean, during that period of time, and I talk about Luis Valdez and the United Farm Workers Union, working with some people like Luis, working with people like Eddie Olmos, led me to being an activist in addition to being an artist. I mean, I've always been involved with charity work, with trying to give back. But these guys were, sort of at the top of that. It became the usual suspects, when it came time to, talk about homelessness, about what was happening in Central America, El Rescate, Amnesty International. I used to call it the usual suspects because it was me, it was Eddie, it was Luis, Jackson Brown, Ed Harris, just a number of people who were always at the forefront of Martin Sheen. I slept in a park with Martin Sheen one night to, try to keep them from stopping the soup kitchen.
I love that.
It led me to some really, really beautiful people.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are talks about them doing a remake for La
Yep.
Bamba. What are your thoughts on that? And would you be involved in that? Have they approached you in any way?
I found out from the family. It was
no kidding.
Irma and Mario saying, they're doing a remake, and then Danny Valdez was there, and I was like, really? Wow. And then I found out, my first thought was exactly what Luis Valdez said, which was, why?
Why?
No,
'Cause that was my thought too. Yeah.
I mean, he had an 8-month career, man. We hit all the musical high notes, and so I started thinking about it, as opposed to a knee jerk, just, oh my God, never, that's, there are reasons to do things. First of all, if the family benefits from it, I'm all for it.
Mhm.
Good for them. If it keeps Richie's legacy, relevant and in the spotlight, I think that's fantastic. And when I thought about it, it's interesting because a couple of years ago, I was on a short list of people to direct another Buddy Holly film.
Oh, wow.
And it obviously didn't work out for me, but I started thinking, what's the angle, on this? And the one thing that, I mean, there's what we did not cover was Richie's road experience, his time in New York, some of the other things that he was doing. It revolved around the family. And so, what is this, I mean, this obviously has been visited so many times in so many films about, how sudden fame affects somebody. But one of the things that I found fascinating and that has not been investigated fully was what led to Buddy Holly making that decision to charter the plane. And the Winter Party dance tour was a nightmare. It was the dead of winter. Obviously, February 3rd, 59 is when they went down. Freezing temperatures across the Midwest, sub-zero. The bus broke down God knows how many times. The heater did not work. They were sleeping in their clothes. They hadn't done laundry in weeks. There were reports that they actually burned newspapers in the aisles to try to create some heat. I think one of the band members or one of the roadies got frostbite in his toes. So I mean, this was a freaking gauntlet that they were running, and so it was not cavalier for Holly to go, screw this. I need to get to the next gig, sleep in a bed, and wash my clothes. So that I think would be fascinating. That would be interesting to watch because so many things came together to lead them to a very, very tragic decision.
Yeah, I mean, there's many angles to tell a story, even if it's the same story. So I get it. I just kind of feel personally, I feel like you guys introduced Richie Valens to the world. And, it's not, of course, there's more to learn about him, but I don't really see a reason for another film anyway. But thank you for answering.
Yeah, we'll see. And as far as me and getting involved, I think, I pull people out of the story. If all of a sudden, I'm playing an uncle or a concert promoter or something like that, for 2 minutes, the audience goes, "Hey, that's Lou Diamond Phillips. He's the guy that played the, Richie 40 years ago."
Yeah.
So I don't think, other than, getting my blessing and hopefully an invitation to the premiere, I'm going to be involved.
But I like that, though. I mean, as long as it doesn't steal too much focus and become a distraction away from what they're trying to tell. I love the wink, wink. Hey, Lou Diamond Phillips is in this film. And so obviously he endorses this. And now let's go down this road and listen to this story told, as long as they're not just remaking the same film, because that wouldn't make sense. Anyway, so you did 2 critically acclaimed films that were low budget, but then Young Guns, not so much. I mean, you had guys like, well, yourself, but Emilio and Charlie and Kiefer Sutherland, Dermot Mulroney, Terrence Stamp. I read that you didn't have to audition for that. Did you? They just offer you that role?
It's a funny story, actually. And you're talking about, the Miami Vice and me going, this is my moment where I arrived. Mm-hmm. I knew I arrived with this film. Okay. My first day on that set, I was like, holy shit, I'm one of these guys. I'm the brown brat packer, and so it's odd because I met Kiefer coming out of a movie theater at the Beverly Center. He was coming out of a movie, I was going in, and oh, hey, how are you? Love your work, blah blah blah. We should work together. Within 2 weeks, I got the script for Young Guns. He was already attached. Somebody else was attached to play Billy. And that was Sean Penn, who ended up not being able to do the film because he was in jail for punching a photographer.
What you do,
Yeah. Well, he was defending Madonna, so there you have it. But Emilio came on, very, very quickly, and Emilio ended up bringing on Charlie. We had talked earlier about The Beast. I actually spent about 5 hours on a plane cross country with Patrick Swayze, knowing he had the offer to play Dick Brewer, and I tried to talk him into it, but he said, "No, Lou, I done so many of these, ensemble films. I'm past that now." But it was Emilio that reached out to Charlie. At any rate, so I got this script. I'm loving it. I'm from Texas, so it's a Western. I grew up on them with my dad, and I was just beside myself. So I go to the meeting on the Fox lot, and director Chris Kane is there, and Paul Schiff, producer, Joe Roth, producer, who ended up becoming the head of Fox eventually, talking about the character. We're talking about Westerns, blah, blah, blah. And so it becomes a lull in the conversation. And I said, I'm sorry, they didn't tell me which scenes that you wanted to see. So I prepared the speech and this one other scene, if you want to see it. And so now Chris Kane kind of smiles and he looks down the line, John Fusco smiles, and next thing I know, they're all smiling at each other. And I'm thinking, did I say something funny? And Chris Kane leans forward and he goes, Lou, the part's yours if you want it.
I love that.
Oh, well, okay then. I'll take it.
You're the last one in on the booking.
We have to think about yourself. So you mentioned Kiefer, and you mentioned the Brat Pack now. Okay, so you had people who are already well-established actors, and you've done a few things now too. But you had children of Hollywood royalty already. And, you know, you had Jack Palance and all that. So when you went into it, did you have like a different level of expectation for yourself? Or like, were you more nervous on this one?
Um, I, I wasn't nervous only in the respect that by now I felt like I knew what I was doing. That, you know, this was my third film in Hollywood. I mean, you know, that's sort of amazing to me when I look back at it now. My first three films in Hollywood were La Bamba, Stand and Deliver, and Young Guns,
Incredible.
back to back.
Right.
And that's probably why I'm still here today. But yeah, you know, I'm quite a bit intimidated, you know. I mean, these guys, like you said, I mean, you know, they're you know, members of a dynasty, you know, and I'm a middle-class kid from Texas, you know what I mean? So yeah, I did feel like a bit of an outsider, which is funny because that's how Chavez would have felt, you know.
Sure, yeah,
You know,
outsider.
I mean, that's what I always say to, you know, young actors. It's like, live life, man, because that's going to be your best resource. You know, that's always going to be your best, you know, go to when it comes to understanding a part. You know, it's like, what part of me is in this? But I think one of the other things that really helped was that we had about a week-long cowboy boot camp, you know, where everybody was doing writing, everybody was, you know, working with the guns and the props, and me with the knives and, you know, whatnot. I spent a long time with a really wonderful trick writer named Dale Gibson, who taught me a lot of, you know, hanging off the horse and a lot of this other stuff. Plus, my horse in the first one was his horse, Bailey, freaking Cadillac of horses, you know, sorry. So, you know, we were all hanging out together, man. We were, you know, going to dinner. We were, you know, going to the bars. We were, you know, that in and of itself created a level of comfort and a level of chemistry, so that, you know, we were just ourselves on camera. I mean,
No doubt.
one of Chris Kane's first and I think most insightful directions was, don't think too much. You know, don't overthink this. Just do it.
I love that. And what's way more important than learning to get on a horse on the left side of the horse is the chemistry that you guys built, like you said, like the being able just to hang out. Then you start to you roll up the sleeves and start working, and you know each other and you trust each other, and that's you can't replace that. I mean, that's so valuable. So okay, so I read there's a lot or a few things written about the shooting of this film. I heard you guys like to play pranks on each other, and I think you played a prank on Emilio, had something to do with the sheep. And why would I ask a question I'm not even sure I want to hear the answer to? But
because you're never going to scrub this from your memory banks. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, it's going to be there forever.
Okay, so give it to us if you can.
Yeah, well, I mean, so it starts on the first day, where we all get these boxes from 20th Century Fox. I mean, literally the you know, the FedEx thing or whatever it was said, you know, ooh, 20th Century Fox, and it's a gift, you know, and you know, the card said, you know, from Fox, really want you to know what we think of you, you know, and your participation in the film. And you open it up, and Emilio had gotten cow pies and put them in all these boxes that we received. So now we're like, okay, it's on. All right. And so now Kiefer and I, you know, start plotting, and there's little things left, right, center, you know, there's always stuff going on. But about 2 weeks in, we're shooting on a sheep ranch, and I was like, okay, here's my opportunity. And if you remember in the film, there's a bordello scene. So wardrobe had, you know, corsets and garters and all of this. I paid the farmer, the sheep farmer, rancher, $100 to rent a sheep for the day. And I had him put it in Emilio's trailer, and I put a garter and a corset on it because Emilio had been complaining that he was the only one without a girlfriend, you know, on this show. So, you know, I made a little sign that said, you know, Emilio, I'm yours. He thought it was freaking hilarious. But what was even more funny is that beyond that joke, the sheep was stuck in there, ate his trailer, ate the couch, shit everywhere. Just, yeah, it was more joke than I bargained for.
Right. But hey, man, you were sleeping on a couch getting scale at one point, and here now you're getting this FedEx envelope. You're able to rent a sheep for $100.
Yeah,
Life's good, man. Life's
life
good at
is
that
good.
point. Yeah. I heard that none of the fight scenes were choreographed. What can go wrong?
The actual physical fight scenes were choreographed.
Okay.
There was one scene in particular that, once again, going along with Chris Kane's, seat of your pants philosophy. The scene where Emilio shoots a bad guy in the toilet, right? And we've come upon a whole gaggle of Murphy men in this shack out in the middle of the woods. And so literally Chris said, okay, we're loading up all of your weapons. All the stunt guys are going to pour out of this, and you guys just open fire. Okay, just open fire, and every once in a while the stunt guy's going to fall down, and when you've emptied your weapons, ride out. It was freaking mayhem. It's sort of amazing that nobody was hurt. But yeah, just I mean, and he had like 6 cameras, just crazy, shooting all the action, and it was very real, very visceral. Kiefer and I ended up, emptying our guns first, and then we ride out. Charlie hated horses. He was the only one who did not really take part in the week-long cowboy camp to learn how to ride. He didn't think he needed to learn how to ride, so he was not good on horses. And so as Kiefer and I are riding out, and you can bleep me if you want to, but this is how it happened. We're riding out. Between us, this horse running headlong with Charlie on its back, all the way back, pulling back on the reins, going, oh, fuck, whoa! And then a couple of stunt guys on horseback riding after him to try and stop this runaway horse. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I hear the stuntmen right now, just freaking actors, man. Hollywood coming in, leaning way back on the horse.
Love your cat, by the way. I have 5.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a blue Maine Coon. She rules the house.
All of mine are half Maine Coon. I have 5 that they're all from the same litter. They're half Maine Coon.
Beautiful.
Best cat ever.
Yeah. I didn't know she was in here this whole time. I'm in my guest room in my house. Yeah, she's going to murder me in my sleep one time, but we could talk about that another.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about being hurt. So you were hurt badly on Young Guns too. I read that. What happened there?
Really, really poor planning. I will say that it was probably the best lesson for me to listen to my gut, because I knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong getting into it. Yeah, I was dragged by a horse. I don't know if you can see it there. That scar.
Oh, wow.
I broke this in 4 places.
Oh, wow.
I took a chunk out of my kneecap. It was my last scene on a horse, and it was the getaway. When we come up out of the pit,
Sure.
and all the guys in hoods, end up being Emilio breaking us out, and then once again mayhem ensues. And there is a alleyway that is no wider than my office right now, and I'm supposed to ride in. Emilio comes in the other way, because the scene was not scripted. There were plastic shackles that we'd already established on there, but the noose around my neck was very, very real. And as I said, the scene wasn't scripted, so it was not designed as a breakaway, and this was not considered a stunt. So I'm supposed to ride into this alleyway, real noose around my neck, wrapped around the saddle horn, plastic shackles, and I'm supposed to stop the horse. Now, the horse that I had on the second film was a horse named Arrow, and the reason I was riding Arrow was because he threw Alan Ruck in rehearsals, and they'd already spent the horse budget, and they go, well, who's going to ride this horse? And it's like they looked around and go, oh, Lou's the best rider at this point. So they put me on this really cantankerous horse, who would not stand still ever. So I'm supposed to hit a mark, with the twitchy horse, put my hands up against the wall like this, and turn, because there's going to be a squib, an explosion in the wooden wall. And I'm supposed to turn my head like this, because Emil's going to ride in, pull off a full load by my horse's head, and then they're going to blow the squib. So it's like boom, boom, and supposedly break the plastic shackles. And I said to the first AD, I said, man, what do you think is going to happen? When you pull off that full load, that horse is going to bolt. And he goes, you're a good rider. I said, I'm a good rider with my hands on the reins. I'm turned around like this, dude. And I give credit to Stevie Hanna, the wrangler. He tried everything. He tried laying on the ground. He tried putting monofilament. He tried, so finally, but it was a 3-camera setup. I said, bro, roll the master, let me ride in, let me ride out, and then roll the 2, close-up cameras, and you can blow up all kinds of stuff. It doesn't matter, but don't blow things up when I don't have control of the horse. He goes, no, I'm behind schedule. This wasn't scheduled. I gotta get this in one. Okay. I said, fine, you got one take, but I want to see a producer. Sure enough, Stevie put a bunch of wranglers, and the stunt guys weren't even there because they were on horseback riding back and forth, waving torches and shooting guns. So it's, the horse is like this already. So sure enough, it took me a couple of takes to even get him stopped. We never even got to the point because the horse would not stop on the mark. I finally got him to stop on the mark, do all the action. The gun goes off. Sure enough, the horse bolts, but he does not bolt toward the front of the alley where the guys are waiting to grab him. He rears, he turns, and he goes the other way. As I'm falling, I thought, I told you so. My second thought was the noose. And sure enough, I was dragged like this. I was able to get my fingers in it as I hit the ground, and I was dragged like this by the horse for about 100 yards, but not in a straight line. He took me through a pile of kindling. We shattered a wagon wheel. People are chasing, but it's a horse, and I got this because he kicked me in the head once, a glancing blow. Fortunately, I could see the horseshoe glinting in the light on the way to my head. And so I had a glancing blow here. I threw my arm up, and that's what got me here and broke this in 4 places. So it wasn't fun, but that was my exit on Young Guns 2.
Yeah, I would be suspicious because they did save that for the end. Like, hey,
I had one more scene that I ended up not getting to shoot, which was actually my introduction into the film. They it worked out okay because they introduced me in the pit, later.
Yeah.
And so you were supposed to have been killed in Young Guns 2, but Emilio, I've been reading, has been talking about a Young Guns 3. Yep. So is that happening? Are you back for that?
It is happening. I am back for that. I don't know when we're going to start shooting. Emilio's got a few things to, I think, wrangle before we actually get out there. We'll go back to Santa Fe. Interestingly enough, the 2 people, in addition to Amelia, that are coming back are myself and Christian Slater, the people who died off camera. And I saw Kiefer about a month ago, actually, and he's going, why did I insist on getting killed? Because both Doc and Chavez actually lived to ripe old ages.
Right. Hey, man, I don't know what I mean by this, but the fact that you've named a few different horses by name after this much time has passed tells me something about you. Like they're, I don't know, like they're not just props with, blood in their system, whatever. They're animals. They had personalities, and you still know their names. I don't know why. I just think that's very cool. So you had a run on Broadway in The King and I, and you did the Yul Brynner role. That would frighten the hell out of most any actor. But walk us through that. How'd you get involved, and let people know what that's like, getting up on such a huge stage and singing every single performance.
Ignorance has long been my friend. It overrides fear, a lot of times. Once again, it's just like one thing leads to another, like Miami Vice led to Stand and Deliver. There was a point in the early 90s where I was like, you know what, I think I've lost touch with the foundation, and I needed to get back on stage, and so I went and I did a lovely play, which when I think of it now is epic. A play with music, not necessarily a musical, but a play. We did a new version of the Good Person of Szechuan down at La Jolla Playhouse, and it was a new translation by Tony Kushner who won every award under the sun for Angels in America. The other really cool thing about that is that new music was written for it by David Hidalgo and Louis Perez of Los Lobos. So I finally got to sing their songs when David was my voice in the film.
So cool.
So in that production, theater casting director, Jay Binder, comes to see it. And this is 94. And then cut to a year and a half later, when they're talking about, doing a revival of The King and I. And the wonderful thing about the King and I that we did in 96 and 97, everybody in the cast in Asian roles had Asian blood for the first time ever on Broadway, maybe the first time ever in the world. And so there was a short list of people, and I was on that list. And Jay Bender had seen me act and sing on stage, so he knew that I was a theater animal, if you will, which is funny because so many people were automatically critical of my casting. It was like, oh, the Bamba boy thinks he can do Broadway, without bothering to look at my resume and my theater degree and dozens and dozens of theater performances. So yeah, it was intimidating. The thing that was more intimidating than that was the realization that Yule had only done it 10 years prior to me. I was the first person to go back on Broadway in the role since Yul Brynner. And a lot of the critics who were going to come and see me had seen Yul Brynner do it.
Yeah.
So I obviously had respect for it. So it's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the script. And it was brilliant. I just, oh my God, still relevant, in 1996. The misogyny, the sexism, the colonialism, the racism, all of these amazing themes that were in it, and a central figure, a man, a king, who knew enough to go, I don't know everything. To save my country, I have to educate my son and make him smarter than me and more future looking than the regimes behind me, And I thought, how brilliant is that? And then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to watch the movie, and if Yul has done everything there is to do, I can't do it. And I watched the movie, and I thought, oh wow, there were jokes that Yul didn't land on as well as I thought he would have. It was a 50s movie, so that the sexuality wasn't as sort of front and center. This attraction that that culminates in the polka, metaphorically. It's like, he's got 90-something kids. There's some sex going on in the palace. Okay. So you kind of got to lead with that, and the brilliant Donna Murphy won the Tony for it, and we won Best Revival. Yeah. So there was a lot more, to be mined in a production of that.
Well, you just mentioned about, every part was done by Asian. So I want to speak about something else, because you did Longmire. Your part Cherokee. You've done a lot for Native communities, I read. So how meaningful was it for you to get to play, Henry Standing Bear?
Well, at first, I mean, there are a number of roles, in my life that I'm grateful for, because they're aspirational, because they stand for, the best of us. Henry is certainly one of those. His loyalty, his integrity, his dignity, all of that, and so it was an honor to play him, and he comes from literary roots. I mean, Craig Johnson is a dear friend of mine. You mentioned me being an author earlier. I might not have, published the first Tinderbox book, The Tinderbox Soldier of Indira, if Craig hadn't read it a few chapters and gone, you need to finish this, And so, I mean, even the fact that, Henry spoke without contractions, I put that into my audition. Because there were contractions, in the script. And as soon as, Craig saw my audition, he went, that guy's read my books, because I went to the source, I went to the material, that's my dramaturgy, coming from the theater. And then when I got the role, the first thing I did, I knew we had a Native American advisor, Marcus Red Thunder. And I called the producer, Greer Shepard, and I said, hey, I need to get a hold of Marcus. And on my own dime, I went up to the Lame Deer Reservation, the Cheyenne Reservation in Montana, to get the blessing, because it was important. Sure. A lot of people, have asked, hey, you played, Latino, you played Native American, you played so many roles without being 100% any of them. And it's like, well, I always approach it with respect and with wanting to bring pride to the community, knowing that I'm going to be an ambassador for them. And so it was important to me to go to do ceremony, to talk to the elders, to visit the high school, to visit the senior home, and be specific. I mean, you don't just play Indian, Navajo is different than Cheyenne, is different than Lakota, and there are, I think you have to come at it with a great sense of trying to get it right. I have a film that's literally going to premiere at the Locarno Film Festival 2 days from now in Switzerland, called Keep Quiet. That's set on a reservation, and I brought Marcus Red Thunder from Longmire onto that to be our advisor. Because it's like just make sure you get it right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going sidetracked to something else entirely here. Since I'm a huge fan of the show, I have to ask about your experience on The Masked Singer. I watch it regularly. I had no idea it was you. I was totally shocked and trying to guess the time. How did you become involved, and what was that experience like from week to week? Do you have any inkling who the other performers are?
No. I'm happy to say, just like I've competed and judged on cooking shows on Food Network. What you see is what you get. They don't cheat. On Iron Chef, they got an hour to cook. They give you an hour to cook. On Masked Singer, they literally put you in a hoodie and a mask, and it says, "Don't talk to me." Okay, the crew doesn't know who you are. The other contestants don't know who you are. There are a handful of people that are aware of your identity. Your vocal coach, the production assistant that pulls you out of the car in the morning. I mean, you get picked up, by a blacked out window SUV at your hotel. You're taken to the lot. Before you get out, they hand you the hoodie and they hand you the mirrored mask, and you put them on in the car, and then you walk to your dressing room, and you don't leave your dressing room until you're ready for rehearsal, and you don't rehearse out of that or out of the costume. So they are 100% legit about keeping those things a secret. And what I love is that I know all of the hosts, and it's so funny, man, because at one point I think it was Nicole Scherzinger who goes, I feel like I should know who this is. And I thought, well, yeah, because Nicole and I, performed with Apple to App and the Black Eyed Peas at the Hollywood Bowl for a Filipino charity, fundraiser, so, and I had done the show Prodigal Son and had been upfronts with all of the hosts before. Donnie Wahlberg, I did Blue Bloods with, I've hung out with Jenny before, so it was funny. It was really entertaining because they were guessing all around me,
Yes, I saw.
they were in the right area, but when I saw the clues, I thought, God, that's obvious. It's just obvious.
Who are they guessing? One or two names that were so
Kevin
close?
Bacon, Johnny Depp.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't think Ken was serious, but he guessed Springsteen because I did the gravelly version of my voice.
Right.
Dennis Quaid. They were in the right neighborhood. They knew it was an actor singer. Not necessarily a singer.
Right. Being authentic to the Native American heritage and Masked Singer are just really right there in terms of importance as far as we just came from one thing to another.
Well, listen, I played the mantid. I hung out with some mantids and, put the costume on and ate like they ate and walked like they walked. So, just so I could be authentic about, being a predatory insect.
You won 2 reality shows, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and Celebrity Cook-Off.
Yeah.
What were those experiences like?
It's interesting, man, because it's a different world today, I mean, it used to be, but back in the 80s, you were a film actor or you were a television actor. You weren't both,
Right.
You didn't dare do a commercial, you didn't,
Different time.
it's just, and now, there are no lines, I mean, you got, Oscar winners, I mean, God knows how much Sam Jackson has banked by saying what's in your wallet, you know what I mean? And yet he's still, in major motion pictures, and he does, most, all but a handful of actors, are doing television now, whether it's streaming or cable. I mean, you got Meryl Streep, on Murders Only in the Building,
Well, the
De Niro
work is
just did a
so
full
much
stream.
better now. The content is the quality
The
is
writing
amazing.
is amazing. The direction, you got people going back and forth, and it's really, really exciting, you know. But the reality, I did Masked Singer because my daughter Indigo, that's her favorite show. I did. I'm a big foodie. I was co-owner of Tribeca Grill in New York. The cooking competition, both that and I'm a Celebrity, had a charity component to it, which I thought was wonderful because it was like, okay, we're raising money for a good cause here. And today, the industry looks at how known you are. There's a downside to it. The term celebrity, used to mean you were celebrated for something. Now celebrity just means you're famous or infamous. You can go on the internet, stick a firecracker up your butt, and now a million people know who you are.
Jackass. Yeah.
And get movie roles from it.
Right.
I mean, they're casting TikTok people in television shows and movies and whatnot. Usually doesn't work out, to be quite honest, because there's not a foundation of talent there.
Right.
But I mean, the gloves are off in that, and so you try to pick and choose carefully what is going to keep you socially relevant on social media or whatever else, and what is actually going to tarnish your coin. So it's but there are so many other, I'm doing voiceover stuff now. I got an HBO with Tim Robinson, a comedy, which I love doing. Like I said, I've got Keep Quiet premiering at the Locarno Film Festival on the 14th. Et Tu that I did with Malcolm McDowell is streaming right now, and audiences are loving it. We won a ton of awards at film festivals. So just really thrilled, that what I'm doing is, still resonating out there. Like you mentioned before, I have the 2 books, the Tinderbox.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the books and how do the ideas come about?
Tinderbox. My wife, honestly, I got to give props there. I mean, she is my muse and my touchstone when it comes to almost everything. And when we first met, she read some of my writing, and I saw some of her illustrations. And she hadn't illustrated for a long time, and she had done these manga frames because she was going to do a graphic novel inspired by Hans Christian Andersen's The Tinderbox. And I was like, this is a movie. I looked at it, and because it was manga, it automatically reminded me of Star Wars because of that sort of Kurosawa influence, that Lucas took, Obi-Wan Kenobi and the robes and, samurai swords and whatnot. And so she said, yeah, go ahead, write it. So I wrote a movie. And when I finished writing the film, it was like, this is so expensive, nobody's going to. And I set it in space because Game of Thrones hadn't happened yet. And yet it's a fairy tale. So I set it in space still with the fairy tale roots. And I realized nobody's going to give me this much money to direct a movie, like this. So my manager said, well, write the book. And that way, if somebody wants to, option it, at least you've created the world. Well, the first book, and it took me 10 years. Off and on. My day job kept getting in the way. And it was during Longmire where I'd written like 2 or 3 chapters where I literally, it's like with dentists or lawyers or whatever. It's like, Craig, could you mind looking at something for me and giving me your opinion? And sure enough, he and his wife, Judy, read, the first few chapters, and he said, no, you have to finish this. You have to finish this.
Right.
And so I did. And then when I finished writing it, I also was in the process of developing something with another author, the amazing Chris Bojalian, and he read it and he recommended it to his agent, who had actually represented something from me in the 80s. So she was always a fan of my writing, and Deborah Schneider, and that's how the book got published. And it did so well, and the reviews were so good that we knew we wanted to do a sequel, but I couldn't come up with an idea. But Yvonne did, and that's why she's credited with a story credit on the second one. And she did the illustrations for both books. So it was wonderful because it was a fantastic project. What was hilarious, though, after I wrote the first book, she was like, I don't illustrate sci-fi. I don't draw spaceships. I don't draw weird creatures, you know. But she got out of her comfort zone, and she did an amazing job with it. And it's obviously, you know, now you can get both of them, you know, on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. And they're really pretty fantastic. I'm actually quite
Are
proud.
there any
Awesome.
plans to expand this into this universe into a possible film or series?
I think now it is a series instead of a film, because in writing the novels, I've really filled out the world and the backstories and, you know, all that stuff. And with the second book, we obviously have a second potential. I think it's an 8 to 10 episode series, and I'm literally meeting with somebody to perhaps do it as an animated
Oh,
series, which
fantastic.
is kind of all the rage right now.
You've written screenplays before, but what a different sense of fulfillment. Probably you created your whole universe here.
Yeah,
You know,
and it's, you know, I started out in my teens as a narrative writer, you know, and like you said, you know, I got into writing plays, I got into writing screenplays, but I had not done narrative writing in many years, and so I'm really grateful to be getting back to that. And once again, just at this point in my life, you know, to be able to act in the kind of roles that are still challenging to me, to be able to direct, you know, more often than not, and also, you know, exercise my writing. I really feel as if I'm operating on all cylinders as a storyteller.
Well, like
That's
I said,
awesome.
you know, we are big fans of yours, and you know, we want to thank you seriously for taking the time today, and very gracious of you. And like anytime you want to come, like your career is so vast, like you know, we can't cover it all, but you know, we'd love to have you back to discuss anything else that we can. But thank you so much for today.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me.
This has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier, and again, a very special thanks to Lou Diamond Phillips. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.